It's time for the October Plan with me. This month we're doing a simple weekly layout, a cute birch tree illustration, and so much more. So let's get started. I can't wait to share this month's theme with you. We are doing falling leaves and we're going to work through this wonderful little illustration. This is based on the art of Lori from Little Truth Studio, but we'll get into all of that. The first thing I want to do is just do a quick flip through of my September journal. If you follow along each month, we did roses as our theme for the month of September. I'm doing still the Dutch door cover pages, these cutaway pages with my goals and affirmations tucked away underneath. Then I always do a larger calendar page, kind of a month at a glance, and then my weekly layouts. And for September, I did this fairly simple one where you've got your days across the bottom, lots of space for to-do lists, lots of space for doodles and illustrations up top. This is the week we're in right now. I'm filming mid-month. And if I flip over, I've got a large to-do list. September was a very busy month. This was my practice work for the floral design video, if you watch that one. I've got one page left here for the last spread of September, and then of course we've got room for our October cover page. And just a reminder that patrons of the channel can print my cover page. Go check that out on Patreon after today's video. Okay, and one more little piece of news. I am doing my first US in-person watercolor workshop in New York City. It will be on the afternoon of Sunday, October 20th. This is your chance to learn watercolor florals from me firsthand, so head to my website for all of the information. Link is in the video description. All right, so we always start these Dutch door pages the same way. Mark 8 squares in and draw a line on 2 pages. And then we'll start with our top page. So that line marks where we'll eventually cut away. And we're going to start with a large leaf. And because the theme is falling leaves, it's upside down. You're going to divide this leaf into 5 sections. So start with these ovals. That'll help you just make the sections of the leaf. Eventually this will be a maple leaf. It doesn't look like it right now, but it will be. So start with that one. That's our main falling leaf. Big leaf upside down. Then you can just place smaller leaves all around it. Some are more medium size. I've got one that's kind of an oak leaf. A lot of them are just oval shapes. So having fun and just kind of going at it in a bit of a random fashion. Then once you've placed the leaves, you can start going over them in pencil still and working out the shape. So some of them might have a little bit more of a toothy edge there, or you can add the lines for the veining. So think about that. And then let's come back to our maple leaf. So now I'm still working on creating the guide, but I'm reshaping these 5 sections. I'm going to flip it around, so I'm working on it right side up. But you can see how I've sort of reshaped those 5 areas. And now I go around and I add all the toothy bits of that maple leaf. So step by step, this larger, more complex illustration comes together. We flip that back over, and maybe we want to add 1 or 2 more leaves, but at this point, it's time for us to start going over everything in pen. You know what it's going to look like, you're happy with the illustrations, and so now you can kind of just add all the detail and create a nice strong contour drawing. So I am going to go over all of these leaves. And while I'm doing that, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of classes in photography, painting, business, design, and more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes from experts working in their fields, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. And it's also more affordable than most learning platforms out there. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. And right now, if you'd like to try 2 months for free, click the link in the video description below. Okay, my falling leaves are coming together and I want to go over the main leaf here. So I'm flipping the book back around so I can work on it right side up. But I'm pretty much just following my pencil guidelines, adding those nice toothed edges to the maple leaf. And I don't think about it too hard. The sides of this leaf, they look like they're in motion a little bit. They've got a little bit of a curve in the wrong spots. Now, when we get rid of all of our pencil marks, you can really see how this illustration has come together. And at this point, I want to take a smaller Pigmamicron and start adding some line shading. Now, the line shading is totally optional. I tend to like doing it, but you could stop at this point. You've got a nice simple contour drawing. What I'll do is darken the leaves. I like to darken one side a little more than the other. It adds a bit of depth to the piece, to each leaf. Once I've done a bit of that, I want to start adding some lines to the maple leaf. So you remember those 5 sections. You're going to divide it again and add a line in the center of each section, and then add lines connecting with that. So let's go over it in pen. Line down the first section, second section, third section, right in the middle, and then we come back and add little lines just as if we're working on one single leaf. But of course, all 5 sections come together. So it's really simple, but it looks really nice and detailed and quite pretty when all 5 sections are lined. And this is actually still part of the contour drawing, I would say. This is less shading and more detail. So we're going to finish off with those 2 tiny sections in the bottom, and I think that looks really nice, and it just makes it look so much more detailed, and it really looks like that maple leaf. Of course, I'm a good Canadian, so I have to have a big maple leaf on my Falling Leaves cover page. And here, as I finish up these other leaves, you can see that when I do my line shading, I really follow the shape of the leaf. So those larger contour drawing lines, those are my guidance when I'm doing the line shading. I'm finishing up my cover page by adding just a few more lines, darkening things up wherever I feel I need a bit more contrast. I've added a few more detailed lines to our maple leaf, and then I am all done. Now what I need to do is cut along that pencil line so that I get my Dutch door. And then what happened here is I cut a little bit shy of the line that I had marked. I've never done that, but it's not a big deal. I just want to mark it on the page below so that I know where to draw and where not to draw. And so I'll just mark that in, and then I'm going to place my calendar there, and I'm going to write October or OCT above it. So I just want to give myself some guidelines since I'm doing kind of not a bubble letter but a block letter. So I want it to be as straight as possible while still being hand drawn. I'm going to go over this with my 01 nib Pigma Micron, so a tiny nib for tiny numbers. And then I'm carefully filling in these block letters. This is a great place to use letter stencils if you're not comfortable doing a block letter. Mine do not look perfect. I know to fresh eyes, it will look like, oh wow, that's really good. I see the curving lines. I see that one letter is a little longer, you know, and some areas are a bit thicker. So don't hold yourself to a standard of perfection, or if it's driving you nuts, get stencils and then you can be perfect. I'm also going to do a block letter for the 10, October being the 10th month. It is the 10th month, right? I'll just carefully go around and then place a line in the center, and that gives me a nice black and white contrast there. Let's flip that cover page down. This is coming together really nicely. And as usual, I want to add an area for my goals and affirmation. I always write focus for sort of the things that I want to focus on, or my affirmations for the month ahead. And then my goals, of course, being more of a larger to-do list for the month at a glance. And I'll finish this page by continuing the leaf motif, and I'm just placing a simple curved line, adding 5 leaves there, so 2 pairs and 1 at the top. I'll shape them in pencil first, add some line shading also in pencil, get it done in pencil so you're comfortable with the drawing, and then we'll go over it with our pen. And I'm just carefully adding these lines. You'll notice mine are not perfect. They're not going to line up exact. Some of them go off at a bit of a weird angle because I wasn't, I don't want to spend all day on this. So perfection, not necessary. Erase all those pencil marks, and we have a nice simple month at a glance page tucked below our Dutch door cover page. I'll add some spots for my focus and goals that I'll add later, and then I'm going to finish this illustration with a little bit of warm gray marker. Okay, so there's our cover for the month. The Falling Leaves is such a pretty, impactful, and simple theme to add to your journal. And once you're done, you might realize, oh, I want to add 1 or 2 more leaves in there just to get that motion, get the look of motion, but otherwise we're done. You might have seen underneath the page here, I have my floral motif, and that is from the floral design video that came out at the beginning of September. We talked about how to design and illustrate florals. If you're into drawing flowers, designing them and laying them out together in a pleasing manner can be the hardest part, so give that a watch. I'll link it. And of course, we turned it into a larger printable that is available on Patreon, so go print that if you're a patron. Now I'll leave mine there as my October to-do list, but for now I'm going to flip back to this blank page and design my October calendar. I'm starting with 1 straight line, and then I'm going to divide it into a 3x3 grid, so I want to make my little marks there. I'm using a tiny clear ruler for this calendar. I find the tiny clear rulers to be the most helpful for bullet journaling because you can see through them, you can really see where you're placing things, and helps you follow your dot grid. And I'm going to do a straight line, fairly straight line across the top, mark my center above the Wednesday, and write the month. And we'll have a cute little line there to enclose that monthly title. Now that I've got my calendar in place, I will just place a few leaves and flowers and berries up above at the top of the page. So continuing my theme of falling leaves, but also adding maybe some little rose hips, things like that that are very seasonal here. And you can of course add whatever is seasonal in your part of the world. I'll go over everything in pen once I've done it in pencil. Actually, some of these I won't even do in pencil because I'm just so comfortable with the simple botanical forms, but there's nothing wrong with doing it in pencil first if you need to. I'm going to add a few flowers, but mostly I'm focusing still on leaves, and once that's filled in, I'll begin going over everything else in pen, so my month and my calendar. Now, I did the calendar with a ruler in pencil, but if you know me, I don't often use a ruler, and that's because I just find if you use a ruler and a pen, it tends to, you know, if you get it a little wrong, if the angle's not quite right, then there's nothing you can do about it. So what I like to do is just pull the pen towards my body, and it helps you keep it straight. And if you've already drawn the grid in pencil with a ruler, you'll have every chance of keeping it really straight. Fill that in. I want to do my little line across with the title October here, and then my calendar page is all done. Well, almost. Okay, now that we've done all of the sort of front end of our journal, I want to move on, and I am going to do a simple birch tree illustration that I think you're going to love. For this drawing, we start by tracing a circle. It can be any size. And then you're going to take a gray marker and start doing these vertical lines, very perfectly imperfect vertical lines for trees. And so you'll see at the top of the trees, I'm starting to add some tiny little branches. You don't need a lot of branches. And the first trees fill the circle in its entirety from top to bottom. And then as you go along, you want to do some shorter trees that come to a bit of a rounded bottom somewhere in the bottom quarter of the circle. Then as we move past the halfway point, we start filling that circle from top to bottom again with each tree. So you can see how this circular illustration comes together quite nicely. I'm going to tuck one more tree in the back there, add a few branches, and then we'll switch from our marker to our Pigma Micron fine liner, and we'll start making these look like birch trees. We're going to go over them on both sides, kind of do the contour drawing, and then you add little spots and horizontal lines and broken lines, and that just creates that look of the beautiful black and white birch bark. That's a tree that we have many of here in Canada, and in the fall they have beautiful yellow leaves. So it's perfect for our autumn falling leaves theme that we're doing this October. Now, this piece is not my own creation. This is actually based on the artwork of Lori Roberts from Little Truths Studio. Absolutely go give her a follow. She does these beautiful, mindful, whimsical watercolors. This is one of them. It was a gorgeous piece that said, "Follow your own path." And I wrote to her and asked her if I could do a version of her work in my journal in marker, and she said absolutely. She was very sweet. So be sure to go give her a follow and say hello. I'm adding some little yellow leaves at the top of the birch trees here at the end of each branch, and I'll also place a few across the ground, just very haphazard. And that will complete our falling leaves birch doodle. Thanks again to Little Truth Studio for allowing me to recreate this beautiful piece of art. I'm going to erase that pencil circle. That's sort of the last step there. It looks great once the guideline is gone. And then we can add some text. I'm just going to write "Hello Autumn." I'll do cursive for the hello and a simple capital letters or uppercase print for autumn. And I think those two handmade fonts together look whimsical and cute. And that kind of completes the page. You might want to tuck one or two more leaves in there. But otherwise, that's all there is to it. I think this is a very achievable illustration. Moving on, we're going to complete today's setup with a simple weekly layout. I've divided the page here, and I'm going to fill in with my gray marker these sections. You can see how I know where to start and stop for each one, so it keeps it quite simple if you do the setup in pencil first, and we'll just fill in. Those are not perfect rectangles. They don't need to be perfect. And then I'll use my black pen to simply put the days of the week and the date. I got Monday wrong. I have to fix it. And then I'll write the week across the top. And this layout gives you lots of room for doing a goals list, a to-do list, or maybe even a little habit tracker. And I often am inspired by books of notes on Instagram. Her weekly layouts are always beautiful in their simplicity. They're very minimal and achievable, yet so lovely. So this one I wouldn't say is an exact replica, but is very much heavily inspired by. Give her a follow as well. And I'm just going to do a little doodle over on the side here. Of course, I'm doing a floral doodle, but October would be a great time to do some little pumpkins or something like that. I'll color this in to give the page a nice amount of contrast, a little bit of line shading, and I'm all done. Let's have a quick look-see together. Our Falling Leaves Dutch Door cover page. We have a beautiful maple leaf. Our goals and focus and calendar are underneath. Then on the next page, we have a larger calendar for our month at a glance. Lots of little leaves and berries there as well. I've got that monthly to-do list. If you want to follow along and create this illustration, watch the floral design video. I will link that in the description below. And then of course, we flip over to our beautiful Falling Leaves Birch illustration. Be sure to go follow Little Truth Studio on Instagram. Say hello to Lori. And then I have a simple weekly layout that's going to be really easy for me to create with a nice habit tracker. Give a follow to Books of Notes as well. And you might want to come and say hello to me on Instagram as well, at Shayda Campbell. And definitely hit my Patreon after the video if you would like to print any of these cover pages or calendar pages. And thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. You guys know how much I love Skillshare. Chris and I use it a lot for video editing and photography and animation courses, which you saw a little bit of in this video. And if you'd like to continue your education in watercolor or gouache, there are so many tutorials waiting for you. One that I thought you would like in particular is Sketchbook Illustration for All. This is about journaling and drawing your day. It's mixed media, which we love on this channel, watercolor and pen. And this artist, her perspective is a lot like mine, a lot like many of ours, I think, where it's about taking the everyday items around you and bringing them to life through art. It's about journaling your experience, and it's just a beautiful course with a really whimsical feel, and it's very inviting. So just a perfect course. If you love this channel, I think you'll really love this. Anyways, guys, thank you again for watching the tutorial today. I hope you will do your October planning along with me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and head over to Patreon if you want those printables.